Greetings, fellow Kerbonauts. Welcome to Kerbal Space Program. My name is Rice, and this is the Mini Space Program. Okay, today we are going to actually run a little sandbox here. We're going to play a big old experiment, and we are going to run an entire space program using parts that are under 2.5 meters in diameter. And what I mean are generally we're going to be running the 1.25 meter parts, which is these guys right here. Um, Whoops, the fuel tanks here. These are the good old fashioned 1.25 meter part fuel tanks here from way back in the day. I'm part of the old guard with Kerbal Space Program when only these 1.25 meter parts existed. Um, and I have had to learn to play the game with just these parts on a potato computer. So we've had to do a lot of part reductions, make sure there weren't a whole lot of parts in the vehicles that we launched, and make sure that the parts we used were fairly small. Back in the day, 2.5 meter parts were a little bit more of a modded thing. What we're also focused on too is not that, but about the largest part we'll end up using is probably these guys here. These are the 1.8 meter parts. But everything under 2.5 meters, we're going to try to steer away from. Now, I say this generalistically because there might be some occasions where we'll end up using the 2.5 meter parts, but in most cases, we'll be using the smaller parts. What's really neat about this, though, is that everything turns out kind of mini. And it's a neat little challenge, too, to try to figure out how to put together a solar system faring space program using parts that are fairly limited. In many ways, this is a lot like using the real solar system mod in a smaller scale because you can't use the big parts to easily traverse between planets. You gotta stick between these smaller parts here. So with that said, let's head out onto the launch pad, and let's go ahead and launch our first vehicle. We are going to launch our, let's see here, it is our scanning probe. And what we're going to do is we are going to launch our vehicle towards the Mun. We're going to get ready to do some Mun exploration. So this includes space stations, space bases, primarily starting out with bases on the Mun, Mun space stations, things like that. We're going to try to build um, a complete space program off of just these smaller parts. This rocket here, pretty cool by the way, using the RLA mod. The RLA mod gives us some additional parts here, and these are half-meter solid rocket boosters. Really cool. It's so tiny and so cool. And we have our standard swivel engine on the bottom here, so everything is listed as 1.25 meters or below. Here we go. This probe that we are going to launch is essentially going to scan for resources on the moon or the Mun. And then hopefully at some point we'll be able to land some little mini miner made of little tiny parts that'll help us mine for resources on the moon or the Mun, depending how you want to pronounce it, in preparation for heading off to Duna, because that's going to be our next step after that. But first, we need to do a proof of concept. We want to establish a refueling station on the Mun in preparation to going to Duna. Now, any other veteran Kerbal Space Program player might say, well, why not just head on over to Minmus and do your thing? Lighter gravity, it's not as hard. Part of it is kind of a proof of concept because what we want to do is we want to develop a refueling station on Ike. Ike has a little bit more gravity than Minmus. If we're able to successfully build a Mun base on the Mun with its given gravity, as well as a refueling station, then that proves that we can also build the same thing on Ike in preparation for Duna. And that's generally what we're looking for here. So for all intents and purposes, we're going to ignore Minmus for a while. We're going to pretend it doesn't exist. And we're going to do our thing. Everything based around the Mun, this little planet right here, this little object, celestial object, excuse me, not a planet. And then after that, we will see what else we can move on from there. Now, the Mun is going to be a little bit of a project for us. It's going to take a few episodes for us to set up a proper base there and whatnot, because these 1.25 meter parts do take a little bit of work. Um, Especially since what we're going to be doing is we're not going to build a whole lot of rockets that require there we go. Next stage. We're not going to build a whole lot of ginormous, epically huge rockets, especially with the 1.25 meter parts that we have. We're going to try to build something a little bit more reasonable. What this translates to is we're building rockets that can generally lift only about 4.5 tons at a time into space, maybe 10 tons max, but with these smaller parts, we're fairly limited in the scope of things that we can launch at a time, which means we're going to do a lot of rocket assemblies in orbit. So that's pretty much how it's going to turn out. Okay, so we are fast approaching apoapsis of 50 kilometers. Just keep on jetting along here. See if we can break through the atmosphere. Hopefully, we've got enough delta V here to make it to the moon. I'm pretty sure that we do. Okay, keeping things timed to apoapsis above 55 seconds, that's always a good thing. We really need to get that apoapsis above into space, which is at 70 kilometer terminator altitude, which transitions from atmosphere into space here. This probe, again, is our scanning probe. It's going to help scan for resources. That means we've got to put this thing into a polar orbit around the Mun. Should be fairly straightforward. Okay, we are almost on the proper apoapsis. There it is, 70 kilometers, perfect. We're going to do MECO, main engine cutoff, and then we're going to go ahead and speed up time. And get us to 70 kilometers. And then we can speed up time again. Right now we are in physics time warp because we are below, we are still in the atmosphere of the planet, so we're below space right now. Kind of weird to say below space. Okay, 62 kilometers, 63. Just getting time to pass by here. As soon as we hit into space, we'll go ahead and dump our fairings. 66 kilometers, we are almost there. 67. Keeping ourselves nice and steady. And we are just about on the 70 kilometer line. Got the sun coming up behind us, or oops, there we go. And then let's go ahead and release our fairings. Perfect. Opening up our comms arrays, and there's our little scanner right ahead here. In most cases, when I build comm probes, I tend to build them a lot smaller than this, but because of this guy here, I ended up building 1.25 meter parts behind it to scale with this ginormous scanner here. In many cases, when I build space probes, they tend to use half-meter parts, 0.6 meter parts, but this one will do just fine. Okay, let's go and speed up time till we get our apoapsis right about close enough for us to do a burn. Here we go, and we're right on top of the apoapsis. We're going to try to circularize our burn. Perfect. We are now in stable orbit. Quick save. And then let's go ahead and head on to the moon, or the Mun. I always end up saying the moon for some reason. Okay, here we go. Next up, we're going to go and add a maneuver node. There we go. Okay, so that is 859 meters per second, delta V. Let's see here, node in 30 minutes. Let's go and speed up time here. There we go. And then activating throttle again. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we are going into our lunar injection burn, or Munner injection burn. Mooner? Mooner? With an M-U-M-O-O-N-E-R. And releasing and activating thrusters. Here we go. Okay. we have hopefully enough delta V to get to the Mun here. And to be able to circularize our orbit. I may have underestimated the amount of delta V that we need to get this vehicle there. But we will see in a moment here. Okay, I think we are going to be just fine. Here we go. And then let's head on and switch our target marker to the moon, or the Mun. There we go. And then we're going to drop that periapsis right below the Mun. Okay. We're going to have to wait until we escape or the gravitational influence of Kerbin here. Here we go. Okay, almost there, and perfect. Okay, now let's drop this orbit into a polar orbit. Let's hope we got enough delta V for this. We are getting there. Okay, we are at about half a tank of fuel here. Still looking pretty decent. Okay, we're going to try to hit inclination of 90 degrees. Make this as perfect as we can get it. 70 degrees, 73. We are almost there. And we are at 87. Ooh, so close. 90 degrees. Perfect. All right, now all we got to do is just get ourselves to the periapsis, and then we will put ourselves into an insertion burn here. So coming up to the periapsis, perfect. Standing by and burning away. Okay. There we go. Our distance periapsis is at 277 kilometers. We're gonna make this roughly, yeah, let's go ahead and shoot for 400 kilometers. So let's circularize this orbit accordingly. 3, 2, 1. There we go. And then let's go ahead and make this perfectly circular. So, well, as close to perfect as we can get it. So we're gonna head on over to the apoapsis. And then we'll burn this prograde. Perfect. Okay, and we're going to scooch on over to the apoapsis again, and then we're going to burn prograde again. Turn ourselves right side up-ish. Here we go. Almost there. Oof. Okay. And that is about right. Let's do a little bit of an OCD check here. And let's do a really quick burn off of the apoapsis. There we go. So 400, and we'll flip on over to the periapsis, and then we're going to do a retrograde burn and drop that from 406 kilometers down to 400 kilometers. We're going to shave 6 kilometers off of the apoapsis here. There we go. Perfect. All right, next up we begin the scan. So perform orbital survey. And survey is done. Look at that, beautiful. Okay, let's go ahead and do a search for, we're going to search for ore. Then monochrome inverse heat map. There we go. What we eventually want to do is we want to look for these little red spots here on the heat map. I believe this is where our highest resource concentrations are going to be. Also, we're going to make this a little bit easier on ourselves, and we're going to try to land toward equatorial region, right up here through the equator of the Mun, and hopefully we can get some resources through there. It's generally the easiest to land because we're going to put our Munner space station in orbit along the equatorial line there. Okay, quick save, and then we're going to give this a rename here. We're going to call this rename vessel. And this one's going to be our probe. And we're going to call this Mun Resource Scanning Probe. There we go. Okay, and we're good to go. Let's go and shut off the engine. And close enough. We're about 500 meters off of a perfectly squared off polar orbit. But hey, that looks good to me. Okay, here we go. Back to the Space Center. Okay, let's go and fast forward to today. Perfect. All right, so next step, what we're going to do is Space Station Hub. Clear this spot of all Kerbals, and we will launch. Okay, our next mission today will be launching a Mun Space Station Hub. Same as before, built entirely of smaller parts, below 2.5 meter parts. This is going to serve as our hub to expand our space station, actually. As you can see, this is probably one of the larger parts we're going to launch. This thing is roughly 7 tons worth of space station, which is a lot, by the way, in 1.25 meter part standard. So, okay, here we go. Oh gosh, I forgot to attach separators to these radial boosters here, so we might have a little bit of an issue releasing them, but we will see. Okay. Here we go, tilting our rocket. We're a little bit top heavy here. This one is one epically huge beast here. This space station hub currently is unmanned right now. It has enough snacks to last one Kerbal, I believe, about 500 days. We aren't using the full TAC life support mod for this one, so no oxygen, water, or fuel. We're strictly sticking to snacks for this one to keep things nice and simple. Okay, here we go. And turning us over. Oof. This one has fins, so we can afford has aerodynamic fins here, which allows us to steer a little bit through the atmosphere. So we can afford a little bit more of a liberal turn. We are at 10 kilometers, and we are turning a lot less liberally than I wanted to. Let's go ahead and turn this puppy over here. There we go. Switch over to orbital speed indicator. And we are getting there. We are almost out on our radial boosters. Okay, and here we go. Fingers crossed. 3, 2, 1. Woo! Good deal. I was afraid those boosters were going to smack right into the center line booster here, but looks like we are just fine. Perfect. Okay, so let's go and turn ourselves over. 20 degrees above the horizon. Nice and easy. We need to tippy tap this over, just careful wise. Okay, apoapsis at 48 kilometers, 49 kilometers, 50 kilometers. Good deal. Okay. Coming up on the horizon. And let's go and lift ourselves 10 degrees above the horizon, just in case. Oh yeah, we better switch over to just hitting the caps lock key so we can switch over to minute controls on this vehicle here. When taking off, I almost always switch over to fine-tune controls, which is indicated by these little blue indicators here. See, if you hit the caps lock key, that switches them to orange, and that means you're not doing fine-tune controls. When you press the maneuver buttons, the WASD keys, it tends to move your vehicle a little bit more vigorously, versus if you hit the caps lock key and switch it over to blue, it moves it just ever so slightly, which is perfect in case you want to do like docking maneuvers and things like that. I generally use it almost all the time, especially when taking off and docking maneuvers. But there are very few instances where I've ever had to not use fine-tune controls. But that's just me. That's my general way that I play this game. So I'm usually always concerned I might accidentally flip the rocket end over end if I turn off fine-tune controls. So that's generally how that goes. Okay, so we are almost at 70 kilometers. 66 kilometers, 67. Perfect. 70 kilometers on the apoapsis. Now, let's do MECO, main engine cutoff, and then let's go and speed up time again. And then, hopefully we should be good to go. Once we hit past 70 kilometers, we'll go ahead and we will ditch our fairings. There we go. Keep our vehicle pointed towards the horizon here. And we're at 70 kilometers. Okay. And let's go ahead and ditch our fairings. Fairings are ditched, revealing our majestic space station hub. Let's go and open up our solar panels. And then we're going to open up our comm arrays here. We have 2 minor comm arrays here and here. Okay. As you can see, this is a fairly humble little space station of sorts. So, we don't need all of those ring band lights here. We just need this set of lights on. So, let's go ahead and circularize our orbit. And as you can see, our radiator panel is already starting to heat up pretty good here. Okay, speeding up time. And activating main engine again. There we go. As you can see, our periapsis is lifting. And then let's go and scooch on towards our apoapsis again. And we'll do another orbit insertion burn. Nice and easy. You can see here our periapsis is slowly exiting out of the atmosphere. Let's keep this pointed towards the horizon. And perfect. Look at that. And we still have our main stage. So I guess we'll use up the rest of the fuel in that puppy in order to help inject us toward the Mun here. So this is our space station hub. This has some minor items attached to it that allows for habitability. We're going to attach a habitation crew module, a utility crew module, some fuel modules, things like that. But for now, this can house some Kerbals. This has some comm equipment attached to it. And this little tiny docking port over here is for our crew capsule to dock with the space station. This right here, this one is our that's our airlock hatch actually. So we have one unified hatch in case Kerbals need to go out into space. As you can see, these are modded parts here. Using just 1.25 meter parts tends to be a little bit tough because there are some fairly limited selections. So we're going to use some mods, which you probably saw before. We're using the RLA mod. We're using the stock space station mods, and we're going to be cherry picking off the 1.25 meter parts off of those to make this mini space program work. Okay, so next up, let's go ahead and set a target for the Mun. And here we go. I believe that should do it. We have a total of 1200 delta V. Hopefully that is enough to get there and slow us down. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case though, but we will see. Okay, here we go. Focus toward the maneuver node. I'm glad this space station is unmanned in case something really screwed up, so here we go. We got 20 minutes to the T-minus 15 minutes to the node here. It's going to be a minute-long burn. Okay. And perfect. Here we go. Let's turn our space station towards the maneuver marker. And 3, 2, 1, and ignite. Here we go. Okay, slowly burning down that fuel. We're getting ready to ditch this main stage in just a little bit. And perfect. Gauge and activating booster. Okay, so this one's going to be about a minute-long burn here. Ooh, we're shutting it pretty close here. 700 meters per second delta V. We have 350 meters per second left on the burn here. So that's going to give us a little bit over 300 meters per second delta V left over. Hopefully that's going to be enough to get us to lock into orbit around the Mun, but we will see in a little bit here. Okay. Coming up soon here. 200 meters per second left to go. And 150 meters per second left to go. Okay, 90 meters, we're almost there. Okay, perfect. Now, let's switch targets over to the Moon. And let's put this thing into a 100-kilometer orbit. Right about there. Yep, that is good enough. Okay. Here we go. And let's go and switch back to our space station. Perfect. We are now at the influence of the Mun. Let's get this pushed back a little bit here to, there we go, 100 kilometers. We're going to come right into the Mun here. Now what's neat about this space station, it's going to serve a dual role. So it's going to have some it's going to serve multiple roles actually, more than just two. So it's going to carry fuel, it's going to be our habitation base around the Mun, and also it's going to serve as our primary equatorial comm relay satellite too. Okay, almost there. Coming up right. Oh, we went right past the periapsis there. Here we go. And insertion burn in 3, 2, 1. Oh yeah, we should have plenty of delta V left. Perfect. Okay, and we're going to do one quick shot around the Mun. And then we're going to do our circularization burn once we reach our periapsis. See if we can make this a perfect, well, almost perfect circular equatorial orbit around the Mun here. Kind of spinning our space station here. So we can get over to retrograde. Okay, here we go. Burning away. Okay, 500 kilometers, getting it pretty close here. Go and increase throttle. Woo. We'll get a little bit closer to the periapsis here so that we can have a little bit more of a even burn. Okay, here we go. Almost there. 250. 170. This definitely won't be perfect. Mainly because after this, we still have to make sure that we fix the plane of this orbit so that it is perfectly equatorial, or as close to equatorial as we can get it. Because right now this has a very slight inclination to it. Let's go ahead and fix that inclination right now. We're going to shortcut this by switching target over to our scanning probe, which has, as you've seen earlier, a perfect 90-degree tilt polar orbit. So if we do a 90-degree perpendicular orbit to it, that would make us a perfectly equatorial orbit around this Mun. So right now that's the ascending node, so we're going to switch over towards our descending node. We're at 91 degrees, so we need to shave 1 degree off this plane. Here we go, burning away. Okay, 90.7, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. 90.0. Look at that. Beautiful. Okay, next up, let's go ahead and flip around. Go to prograde. We're going to lift up our Mun. There we go. Our Mun periapsis has been lifted and centered over to 100 kilometers. And then we're going to do the same thing again on this side. And we're going to do a retrograde burn here. Ooh, all sorts of fun stuff. 1 and 0. Perfect. Okay. Next, what we're going to do is we need to get rid of this dead weight on our behind. Okay, so we're going to switch over to prograde and get ready to release our engine stage here. 3, 2, 1, and release. What has that done for us? Okay. This has a little bit off-tuned our orbit here. So we're going to use the RCS thrusters here. Get us back to 100 kilometers. There we go. Perfect 100 kilometer orbit. RCS off. And let's go ahead and flip ourselves here. We're going to turn this vehicle facing toward the north side here, just in case we need to dock something off of this forward node or this bottom node here. Usually a good idea to have your space station facing toward the north and south poles, the specific parts that you intend to dock. That way it makes it easier for the visiting vessel that you intend to dock to the vehicle. Okay, here we go. So now we have completed 2 missions today. We have our polar scanning probe, and then we have our equatorial beginnings of our space station. It is fit and ready to be habitable. Albeit the conditions are going to be a little bit cramped till we add a few more stuff to this. But so far we've been sticking close to 1.25 meter parts. Let's go ahead and take a look, see what we got here. So we got the space station running at a massive 6 tons and 24 parts. Oh boy. Okay. Next up, let's go ahead and rename this. We need to, let's see here. Mun Space Station. We'll probably think of something cooler later. But for now, there it is. Okay, so we have the very first beginnings of our mini space program involving micro parts and small parts below 2.5 meters. In future episodes, we will add to the space station. We will begin setting up the beginnings of a base on the Mun, and hopefully we won't kill too many Kerbals in the process. Thank you for watching, guys, and we will catch you all later.